Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining me to hear a discussion on strategic emergency management goals and vision for 2029 and beyond. I want to first offer a warm welcome to all approximately 200 folks in attendance from DoD fire departments, from law enforcement agency partners, emergency medical services teammates, hospitals, and city, county, and other federal agencies, as well as our esteemed private sector stakeholders. Thanks so much for attending. A little bit about me. After serving as fire chief of two departments over the past decade and a half, it's my pleasure to serve as your newly appointed director of the Department of Defense's Emergency Management Agency. A little bit more about me. I'm Mike Champion, Chief Mike Champion, and in my 26 years of fire and emergency services experience, this includes a two-header perspective. I had the privilege of being a full-time firefighter and volunteer in my off time. So I offer some of that perspective, especially when it comes to our off-base partners. I also have a heavy background in fire prevention as an inspector and as an assistant chief for fire prevention, both in garrison, which is at home station during peacetime, and deployed. I also had a stint with emergency management when I was assigned to their flight as one of their folks that worked unit deployment manager duties and planning. Something else I bring to the fight is my experience with EET and WIT. That's the exercise evaluations team. And then as it transitioned into a wing inspections team, which are basically subordinates of the Inspector General. That included planning for exercises and evaluation of exercises for an entire base that included evaluations of the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC for short. I've taken part in multi-agency responses across a broad spectrum of incident types that include wildfires, aircraft incidents, structure fires, hazardous material incidents, and fire inspection and public education. Also, community risk reduction efforts and exercise planning and evaluations across multiple agencies. So, emergency management requires a base response force, total team effort that all stakeholders contribute to in order to safeguard people, property, and mission, and the larger effort that's truly a one team, one fight mantra. It really takes everybody looking at all the gaps across the disciplines and jurisdictional boundaries to be most effective. So the goal and vision for the next 5 years, I think it's important to establish a strategic plan for this, and I'll tell you why. Having a vision statement and a mission statement is going to be critical to the anchor point from which we go about these emergency management efforts at the strategic level. My plan is to work with our total force team to coordinate the vision. Vision defined as where we want to be, and hammering out SMART goals and objectives under those goals tied to the POCs. So having specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic time-bound goals with subordinate objectives and a POC for each one, a point of contact, an actual person that's in charge of that objective toward that goal, is going to be critical with our vision as we move forward for the next 4 to 5 years. A mission statement, we're going to get together this week and we're going to collectively craft and draft what it is that we do and that we aim to do. I'll lead that effort, but I really want everyone's buy-in as we craft that mission statement. These will be key documents that lay the groundwork for the next half decade of our work. So, emergency management. Effectiveness during incidents. I think it's important to mention that common language is going to be key when we're dealing with the internal languages of law enforcement, of emergency management, of fire and emergency services, and EMS. I really believe strongly that adopting and training to the National Incident Management System, or NIM standard, is going to help us not just locally, but also to be a better part of the national response framework. So adopting and training to NIM standards that's exercised regularly is going to be key. Now, when we talk about exercises, we are going to have tabletops, but not just tabletops, drills where everyone participates. Now, I think it's also key to mention that after every drill and incident, we really need to look at after action. What I mean by that is post-incident analysis, or PIA, after not just training but after events. Informal PIA is essential, and we'll do that after events and after training, just huddled around the tailboard, as firefighters say, but also exploring formal post-incident analysis with disinterested third-party debriefers as appropriate, that's followed up on at a later time and documented for posterity, will be key to our success over the next 5 years. Now, when we go out and we train together, we need to have goals and objectives for exercises that are evaluated by a team of subject matter experts. So that'll be another facet of what we do for crafting our own exercise evaluation teams for this effort. I'd also like to make a note on effectiveness of specialized teams during disasters. Planning and coordination before the incident is going to be key, especially when exploring what we say we're doing on formal written plans. I know that we already have a lot of shared and or very parallel SOPs and SOGs, which are standard operating procedures and guidelines. So we really need to look at those collectively as a team and create master plans where they all come together. Additionally, mutual aid agreements that are formal, and if they're not formal, they need to be written down with non-DOD and municipal mutual aid partners. So these will all be key to the effectiveness of our specialized teams during disasters. Next, I want to talk about the fire department's role in emergency medical service, or EMS, during disasters. So the first thing I'd like to mention is EMS transportation, not fire and emergency services. However, in the spirit of getting the job done, we've seen instances in the past where vehicles were commandeered for transporting patients, but that's not the way it should play out. Some things that we need to consider are who's transporting as the incident expands. Air transportation, where are the helipads? What are the transfer locations? Do we have triage areas established ahead of the incident? The scope and level of care for fire and emergency services is limited. So what assets do we have on post, on the installation? What are our local assets, and how do we, have we already talked about how those are going to help each other as it expands? Have we made preparations for mass casualty preparations and trained to that level? EOC coordination. What are the trigger points for EOC activation? Have we considered additional supporting EOCs for EMS and other resources in order to get the things that are needed on scene when disaster strikes? These are all things that we need to explore, and just note that the fire department's role in EMS during disasters is limited, but during discretionary time, we can get these things figured out and make for the most effective response possible. Developing partnerships in the private sector and getting together with local officials and local public safety and emergency response agencies. So one thing I'd like to put out is the fact that we're going to explore DoD P4 initiatives, which P4 stands for public to private, private initiatives. Some examples of that are NIMS training. Formerly, this has been accessible to DoD personnel on DoD installations, but through P4, it's possible to bring in municipal teammates and train folks to the NIMS 300, 400, and 700, 800 levels. That helps reduce costs and increases operational effectiveness in a lot of different ways. It speeds up training and that capability. It can also help expedite construction projects, such as seen with shared training facilities, where DoD responders and municipal mutual aid partners can train together with a little bit of coordination. Most importantly, it helps build relationships and partners across public safety entities, regardless of their affiliation, when we all end up working together on a scene. I want to stress the fact that regularly meeting to touch on progress and interaction is so important, at least once a month locally and quarterly for strategic leaders. I understand that not everyone can meet in person all the time. I would, however, highly encourage folks to meet face-to-face, but in instances where it's not possible or there are challenges such as we've seen with the pandemic, we'll come up with a virtual option as needed, but we'll definitely try to get together face-to-face. Some notes on working with state and federal agencies. Again, regular interactions are so important, and reviews of agreements and written plans are going to be very important. Predetermining coordination expectations in common language is key. And communications, early and often, and assessing that. Communications are so key. Most of the incidents that we've seen where there were failures could be directly correlated to issues with communications. Some things we need to look at are EOC locations and capabilities, and planning for operational periods as incidents become significant and a need for next operational periods. Who's going to take over for the initial response? How long are those operational periods? And one thing we've seen in the past is what NIMS forms can we already have ready as basically stacks to start applying to different incidents. We can retain some of the NIMS forms that we've put together during our exercises so that we at least have an anchor point when the incident happens and it's the playoffs all of a sudden. So some notes I have on plans and methods for coordinating wildland firefighting and mutual aid include having pre-established, well-understood mutual aid agreements, and what are our trigger points for mutual aid, especially where wildland-urban interface considerations are. Who calls who? Have we annotated what our pre-communicated notifications are? Do we know who to call and when to call them? What is the aid expectation for different levels of expanding incidents? How are we accounting for resources such as beds, beans, and fluids during events, on base, off base, and for extended operations? All things to consider. In the next 4 to 5 years, I'm also addressing current emergency trends that impact emergency response. First thing is gaining and building trust in communities. So as fire and emergency services, we have the benefit of the doubt when it comes to gaining and building trust in communities. Our forefathers laid that down. But continuing to make good on that is a proactive community outreach effort and customer service. Some ways that we can do that are by having open houses with the public and sharing what it is that we do. Another way to do that is by sharing the community risk assessment standard of cover document and other documents with our customers, the public, those we serve, that show how we are doing where we're trying to go, and what that does for the community. Another emerging trend I'd like to address is taking care of responders. What does that mean? It means a few things. It means addressing mental health and behavioral health before, during, and after the call. Establishing and maintaining fire and emergency services peer support programs and opening those maybe up to other agencies, and access to behavioral health resources, not just for first responders, but for their families, as recommended by Life Safety Initiatives, or LSIs, and National Fire Protection Association minimum national consensus standards. Also, implementing healthy in, healthy out programs, which is basically as we come in healthy, we do the right things to exit our careers for the healthy out piece to help prevent occupational illnesses. And finally, recognition programs for stellar team performance and individual performance to reinforce good behavior and performance in the right direction that we're looking for. Some notes I have on building equity by increasing diversity in emergency response teams is, first, to note that it's a team-by-team effort to create diverse teams and provide opportunities to all members. Ways that we can do that are by looking at our individual teams and efforts for the larger team through job shadowing, by recruiting efforts that are targeted to secure diverse team members, through job rotation opportunities, through training and certification opportunities, and through leadership opportunities. Some training, professional development, and methods for preparing first responders and other firefighters for future disasters are, again, through training by getting IFSAC and other accredited certifications and offering those opportunities, by participating in exercises and drills, and offering leadership opportunities for those who are coming up and transitioning into the planning and evaluation side of things. Professional development for certifications and training. Again, P4 opportunities, public-private, public-public opportunities, formal schools, whether they're in residence or online, tied to succession plans and promotion readiness. Methods for preparing first responders. I think it's important to mention that realistic but safe scenarios need to be created and exercised, and documenting that training, and really looking at post-incident analysis to account for future improvements in training and in response, and looking at those seriously for improvement. So, to summarize, basically the effort to bridge emergency management effectivity across multiple disciplines across DoD and bringing in our municipal partners is truly a team effort as we span the gaps in planning, in aid, mutual aid, and the tactics that will carry us from our present state to an even better prepared state as we edge toward 2029 and beyond. Any questions for me? Thank you for your attention. Have a great day.